All right, we're going to move to another topic now. In the last few months, we've heard a lot about Robert Roberson. In recent days, the Texas Supreme Court cleared the way for his execution after House members tried to put a stop to it. My question is, where do you stand on Robert Roberson's execution and the way House members try to make a stop on it?
You know, I'm a strong believer in rules. I'm a strong believer in the process of government that we have in place. I think it's important that we follow that process. The disagreement I had with some of my colleagues was not necessarily their opinion of what may or may not be, but more about the process and honoring the different branches of government, so that the legislative branch doesn't overstep into the judicial branch or the executive branch. And so I just think it's important that we stay in our lane, that we allow our process to work out and to work through that. And so I think that we'll get to the right place there. Never do I want to see an innocent person executed or jailed for something they didn't do. But I do think it's important that we follow the right process and that we, as a legislative branch, stay in our lane and not overstep into the other branches of government.
Now, looking forward to next year, the next legislator goes to work in January. More than 1,000 bills have already been introduced by lawmakers. Give us an insight as to what are those priorities that Texas lawmakers are putting into this session?
Yeah, so I mean, the priorities of the session vary from session to session. Every legislature has its own kind of personality, and so it remains to be seen what those main priorities will bubble to the top. It's always border security, property taxes, protecting kids. One of my priorities is going to be banning hostile foreign adversaries from owning land in Texas, like China and Iran, North Korea. And so that's where a lot of my focus will be. But the members of the House will formulate our priorities through our votes and through the bills that we file, and that'll come more into focus as we move forward. But those top issues: border, property taxes, protecting kids, our infrastructure, our electric generation, making sure that we're providing for our growing state, and then protecting our state from hostile adversaries.
You kind of went into my next question already for this one, but when you talk about advocating for certain legislation or certain bills, that is, for this upcoming session, what is one that you personally want to focus on for East Texas?
All of them affect us, whether directly or indirectly. My focus is going to be on banning hostile adversaries from owning land here. We don't want hostile adversaries owning land close to our infrastructure, close to our military bases, controlling our food supply. And so that's a national security issue. So we're looking into that as to what we can do as a state to keep our people safe that way.
Now, in terms of property taxes, what bills have been filed that will be introduced in January that may help Texans?
Those are still being filed. I think a couple of thousand bills have been filed, maybe 1,800 to 2,000. There's different ways to go about it, and I know some bills have been filed on that. We'll need to see what our budget surplus looks like, how much money we're going to have that we could take and transfer that into property tax relief. And I'm a proponent of that as much as we can. We have to pay our teachers, we have to build roads, pay our law enforcement. But when we can, we need to return those tax dollars back to the taxpayer in the form of tax relief. And that'll be worked out through the process is the best way to go about it.
Now, another issue we've seen play on the national stage and here in Texas, too, is abortion. That has been left up to the states to decide. What's new this legislative session in terms of abortions?
There's some people seeking clarity on the health of the mother. We believe that the bills that we passed banning abortion do allow for protecting the health of the mother, but some providers have said that is not clear. So there's some discussion about whether we will or will not clarify that for the health of the mother, and then how we'll go about doing that. But other than that, we've seen abortions in Texas go from 56,000 in 2019 to nearly zero here recently. So we're on the right path.
Representative, let's talk about school choice now. The governor has been pushing for parents to have the power to choose where their kids have an education. Savings plans set up for them is one way of doing that with this bill. How feasible is it to have a school choice bill passed this session, because it's failed the last couple of sessions?
The last session we had the bill on the floor. It was debated, and some amendments were offered. That's the first time we've had that issue on the House floor in about 20 years. And so I do believe we'll have a bill this session. What the bill will look like remains to be seen. We got a lot of new members, a lot of strong opinions on both sides of the issue, and so getting that bill to the floor that we can get 76 votes on is going to be the challenge before us. And so I think it can happen. I think it will happen. I think we need to take care of our rural East Texas public schools. We need to take care of our teachers, make sure that they're paid what they're worth. And then we can also allow parents to have that freedom to do what's best for their family with the education savings accounts. And I think we can do all of that. And I think we can do it in a good way. And so, that's a big bill. It's a controversial issue. But I'm optimistic that we'll get a good bill passed that benefits all parents, all families, and takes care of our teachers in public schools here in Texas, East Texas.
Now, in terms of higher education, multiple Republican House members have filed similar versions of a bill to stop providing in-state tuition to certain undocumented students who live in Texas. How do you think immigration and education tie in together?
I think it's important that we, as Texas taxpayers, we don't need to be paying to educate people that are not here legally. And so I think that's an important subject that we need to look at and work through, and we'll see how that plays out and how we go about doing that the right way. But I do believe that's something that we need to look at.
And Governor Abbott said that the state removed more than 6,500 potential non-citizens from its voter rolls. Bills are filed that would require Texans to register to apply to vote with proof of citizenship. Arizona is the only state to do that right now. And Senator Hughes from Mineola proposed a similar bill last session but didn't pass. What's going to be different this session that could change the way East Texans and Texans in general vote?
I think it's important that it's easy to vote and hard to cheat. To me, it's just basic East Texas common sense that non-citizens should not be registered to vote. And so I'm supportive of that measure. We want each vote, a legal vote, to be counted. We don't want cheating. We don't want people that shouldn't be voting to vote. We don't want people voting more than once. And so I think that's important. It's the cornerstone of our whole Republican form of government, is that we get to elect our leaders and our votes need to count and not be stolen and not be, cheated. And so I think that's an important issue that we need to look at. I think there's a good chance we pass something like that.
Our Representative Hefner, anything else you would like to let East Texans or constituents know today?
Oh, no, I'm good. That's good. That's all I've got.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for joining us here today.
You bet. Thank y'all.